Good morning, Houston4Daily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning my guest is Frank Douglas, the Vice President of Business Development with Crossville, who just retired. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing fine this morning. You?
I'm doing great. Thanks for spending time with us. This is bittersweet news for me personally. You're a true friend of mine. We've been working together now since I've bought the magazine. You were at Crossville for 22 and a half years, and I'd like to go through your resume. You grew up in Chicago, spent some time with the U.S. Army, and then went to work for a tile distributor in Memphis. Worked your rear end off there both daytime and nighttime because you went to school at the University of Arkansas, got a marketing degree, worked for a while with Latacrete, and then started your own distributorship business in Florida, and that was half your career. And then the next half of your career you spent with Crossville, like I said, 22 and a half years, right?
That's correct.
You're married to Karen. We'll get to what you're planning to do after retirement, but first let's get to some highlights. Tell us some of your fondest memories of your career.
Well, I was fortunate. I started in the tile business when it was a little tiny business, and most of what we were selling were little tiny tiles, and I've gotten to see that go from that to the influx of Italian tiles in the 70s and 80s, and now we're selling these large porcelain panels that are 5 feet by 10 feet. So what a change from all the areas that we're able to put tile on and all the ways we're able to do it. So it's been a great run.
Actually, as your role with business development, you negotiated the first agreement, I think, and so Crossville was the first to offer these large gauge porcelain tile products with your partnership with Laminum. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if we were the first, but we were certainly the first that connected all the dots in terms of education and logistics and the backup inventory and everything it took to really be successful with these large panels, because they're obviously substantially different from a logistics standpoint and an installation standpoint and just the whole gamut. And we developed the entire infrastructure to be able to support that. So, yeah, it was really a great accomplishment for Crossville.
Well, since you spent half your career there, let me just ask you, when you think about Crossville, what sets them apart in the marketplace?
You know, to me, Crossville is such a unique company. We're a family business, and we're first and foremost a family business, but being part of the group that we are, we've got the financial resources that we're able to do a lot of things that other people can't without being constrained to kind of figure out quarterly results. We're able to have a long-term vision and still operate as a family business. So that whole combination of factors is just kind of magic as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let me just add to that. You hold the number 2 position when it comes to market share. Obviously, Del Tile and all those brands are so big, they're about half the business. But when it comes to number 2, you're there. Privately held company, as you said, Curran family owns it. They also own, I guess, some railroads and some asphalt business, so they're very diversified. And like you say, they're not chasing quarterly numbers. They're doing long-term investments, and they hire people for life, it seems. It's a really neat company. And one of the things that's also neat is the infrastructure and facilities you built in Crossville, Tennessee, because of not only were you first in porcelain in the United States, but you also have, like you said a minute ago, you're talking about the large porcelain panels. You created a training center up there to teach people how to use this product, didn't you? We
did. We set up a school several years ago. We recognized very early on that this was just a real change for the installation industry, and that if we didn't get a large group of people trained and trained properly, we were going to have a mess on our hands. So we very early realized that the industry needed the training, so we actually, as you say, set up a school in one of our factories and had almost weekly training sessions, very hand-on, and we ended up training thousands of installers on the proper techniques for handling and installing these large unit porcelain panels. So it's been a real game changer, I think, for us in the industry.
Yeah, and you also teach people a little bit about sales training with Sandy Smith and merchandising with Jim Dion. I mean, you do a lot of things up there. Let's go back though, just in your career, when you start thinking about your mentors, who would you list?
You know, I was pretty fortunate to have worked for some really strong personalities. I started in the tile business, as you say, in Arkansas, and I worked for a guy there, F.G. Witt, who was just one of the early tile distributors, and he was like a dad to me as much as a mentor, and helped me and enabled me to get my degree at night while I was running the operation during the day. So I look back with kind of fond memories of Glen Witt. I really developed into the commercial side of it working for a distributor in Jacksonville, Florida, design materials company, and I was able to learn more about how the commercial side of the world works there. So I think those two guys kind of stand out in my mind as being strong influences on where I ended up.
Actually, that's one of the things that sets Crossville apart is your focus in the commercial business. So did Crossville have that focus before you came there?
Yeah, Crossville's always been primarily focused because the porcelain tile ended up at the beginning almost being exclusively in the commercial domain. So we and they, prior to my joining, have always been on that commercial side of the business, working with architects and designers. It's kind of been a little bit later development that, because of the strength and durability, we've moved into the residential side of the market. But we were first and foremost a commercially based business.
So you spent your life in this tile business, and so would you think that this business still offers great career opportunities for young people entering the workforce?
Yeah, I tell you, I'm really biased, but because it's the only thing I've done my whole life. But I would say absolutely. It's just a great business. I've met a lot of great people. There's a huge need on the installation side, so I think there's giant opportunity there. I just think that it's such a great surface. There's always going to be a need for it, and people that are good at it are always going to have a way to make a very nice living.
So let's talk about your retirement. What's your plans for the future?
Well, my wife and I do a lot of traveling, and I don't see that letting up. Obviously, the things you hear about, spending more time with the grandkids and our children and that sort of thing are on the schedule. So we're not looking too far ahead right now. We're just looking at what life's going to bring in the next year and trying to figure out what that looks like for the two of us.
Well, I know you live up in Knoxville, so you're going to buy a fishing rod and a fishing boat and all that?
No fishing boats. But we are going to stay in Knoxville because we think it's the greatest city in the world.
I hate to say this, but I don't think we've seen the end of you. You've got so much knowledge in this business, and you've never met a stranger, so it'll be interesting to see what you do when you get bored.
Okay, Kemp. Thank you.
Frank, it's great to talk to you. Again, we're going to miss you in the business talking to Frank Douglas, who's just retired from Crossville as Vice President of Business Development, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.